The fall of Jerusalem in 1099, a turning point in the Crusades. Introduction, the culmination of the First Crusade. The capture of Jerusalem by Crusader forces on July 15, 1099, marked the dramatic climax of the First Crusade. After years of arduous campaigning, the Crusaders achieved their ultimate goal, reclaiming the city of Jerusalem, a sacred site for Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. This event not only signaled the success of the First Crusade, but also set the stage for centuries of conflict and cultural exchange in the region. The fall of Jerusalem served as a turning point, solidifying the crusading movement's ideological and military significance while also reshaping the political and religious landscape of the Holy Land. Chapter 1: The Path to Jerusalem. The context of the First Crusade. The First Crusade, 1096 to 1099, was launched in response to Pope Urban II's call at the Council of Clermont in 1095. Urban framed the crusade as a holy mission to aid the Byzantine Empire against Seljuk Turkish advances and to reclaim Jerusalem for Christendom. The March of the Crusaders. The journey to Jerusalem was grueling, marked by logistical challenges, internal divisions, and battles against Muslim forces. Victories at Nicaea, 1097, and Antioch, 1098, bolstered the Crusaders' resolve, but the campaign remained precarious as they approached their ultimate goal. The Siege of Jerusalem begins. When the Crusaders arrived outside Jerusalem in early June 1099, the city was controlled by the Fatimid Caliphate, which had seized it from the Seljuks in 1098. The Fatimid governor, Iftikhar ad-Dawla, had prepared for a siege by expelling Christian inhabitants and fortifying the city. Crusader numbers and morale. The Crusader army, reduced to about 15,000 men after years of campaigning, faced a formidable challenge. Exhausted and undersupplied, they relied on their unwavering religious zeal and the belief that their mission was divinely ordained. Preparations for the assault. The Crusaders constructed siege towers and other engines using wood from dismantled ships and local trees. Their ingenuity and determination underscored their commitment to the holy cause. Chapter 2: The Fall of the City. The Final Assault. On July 15, 1099, after weeks of siege, the Crusaders launched a coordinated attack on the city. The breach of the walls. Using their siege towers, the Crusaders breached the walls near the northeast corner of the city. Godfrey of Bouillon and his men were among the first to enter, quickly overwhelming the defenders. The massacre. Once inside, the Crusaders unleashed a brutal massacre on the city's inhabitants. Contemporary accounts, such as those of Fulcher of Chartres and Raymond of Aguillers, describe indiscriminate killings of Muslims, Jews, and even some Christians. While these accounts were often exaggerated to emphasize divine favor, the bloodshed shocked even some of the Crusaders' contemporaries. The sanctification of Jerusalem. After the violence subsided, the Crusaders purified the city through religious ceremonies. They held a procession to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, where they gave thanks for their victory and proclaimed Jerusalem a Christian city once more. Chapter 3: The Establishment of the Kingdom of Jerusalem. Godfrey of Bouillon's leadership. In the aftermath of the conquest, the Crusaders established the Kingdom of Jerusalem, with Godfrey of Bouillon as its first ruler. He refused the title of king, instead adopting the title Advocatus Sancti Sepulchri, Defender of the Holy Sepulchre, to emphasize his role as a servant of the Church. Consolidation of power. The Crusaders secured their hold on the city by fortifying its defenses and distributing land among the nobles. However, their control remained tenuous, as the surrounding region was still dominated by Muslim powers. The Kingdom of Jerusalem as a Crusader state. The Kingdom of Jerusalem became the centerpiece of the Crusader states, serving as a base for further military campaigns and a symbol of Christian dominance in the Holy Land. Religious significance. Jerusalem's capture reinforced the crusading ideal, inspiring subsequent campaigns and pilgrimages. The city became a spiritual and political hub, attracting knights, clergy, and settlers from Europe. Relations with local populations. The Crusaders faced the challenge of governing a diverse population of Muslims, Jews, and Eastern Christians. Their rule was marked by a combination of tolerance, pragmatism, and coercion, as they sought to maintain control over the region. Chapter 4: Reactions and Consequences. The Muslim Response. The fall of Jerusalem was a significant blow to the Muslim world, sparking outrage and calls for retaliation. Disunity among Muslim powers. At the time, the Muslim world was fragmented, with rivalries between the Seljuk Turks, Fatimids, and other factions preventing a unified response. This disunity allowed the Crusaders to consolidate their gains, though it would not last. The seeds of jihad. The loss of Jerusalem inspired the concept of jihad as a unifying call to arms. Leaders like Zengi, Nur ad-Din, and Saladin would later use this rhetoric to rally Muslim forces against the Crusaders. The impact on Europe. The news of Jerusalem's capture was met with jubilation across Europe. The success of the First Crusade reinforced the authority of the Church and solidified the crusading movement. Pilgrimage and religious zeal. Jerusalem became a destination for pilgrims, who saw the city as the ultimate expression of Christian victory. The Crusades' success also encouraged further expeditions to the Holy Land. Expansion of crusading ideals. The fall of Jerusalem established a precedent for holy war as a legitimate expression of Christian faith. The crusading ethos influenced European politics, culture, and military strategy for centuries. Chapter 5: Jerusalem as a Turning Point. The capture of Jerusalem in 1099 marked a turning point in the history of the Crusades, with profound implications for the future of Christian-Muslim relations and the development of the Crusader states. The Crusader states take shape. The establishment of the Kingdom of Jerusalem and other Latin states created a new political and religious landscape in the Levant. These states became focal points of conflict, diplomacy, and cultural exchange. A new model of governance. The Crusader states adapted European feudal structures to the unique conditions of the Holy Land, blending Western traditions with local practices. The legacy of violence. The massacre of Jerusalem's inhabitants cast a long shadow over the Crusades, shaping perceptions on both sides. A symbol of Christian zeal and Muslim resistance. For Christians, the conquest of Jerusalem was a miraculous triumph. For Muslims, it became a rallying cry for future resistance. The memory of the massacre fueled centuries of animosity and shaped the narratives of holy war in both cultures. Conclusion: the enduring impact of 1099. The fall of Jerusalem in 1099 was a defining moment in medieval history. It validated the goals of the First Crusade, inspiring further campaigns and cementing the crusading movement's significance in Europe. At the same time, it set the stage for protracted conflict in the Holy Land, as Muslim powers regrouped to challenge Christian rule. Chapter 6: The Long-Term Effects of Jerusalem's Fall. The fall of Jerusalem in 1099 set in motion long-term political, religious, and cultural developments that influenced the crusading movement, the Holy Land, and the broader medieval world. The militarization of faith. The capture of Jerusalem solidified the idea of the Crusade as a holy war, intertwining religious devotion with military action. This militarization of faith had enduring consequences. Expansion of the crusading ideal. The success at Jerusalem inspired further crusades, including campaigns in the Baltic region, Iberia, and even within Europe against heretical groups. Jerusalem became a symbol of the crusading mission's spiritual and military goals. The rise of military orders. Organizations like the Knights Templar and the Knights Hospitaller emerged in the aftermath of the First Crusade, combining monastic piety with martial prowess. These orders played key roles in defending the Crusader states and supporting the broader crusading effort. Jerusalem as a political and religious symbol. Jerusalem's capture elevated its status as a symbol of Christian unity and triumph. However, it also became a focal point of contention, a center of Christian pilgrimage. Pilgrims from across Europe traveled to Jerusalem to visit the holy sites, reinforcing the city's spiritual significance and contributing to the economy of the Crusader states. A divisive prize. Jerusalem's religious significance to Muslims, Jews, and Christians made it a contested city. The memory of its conquest in 1099 fueled Muslim efforts to reclaim it, particularly under leaders like Saladin during the 12th century. Impact on Muslim-Christian relations. The events of 1099 deepened the divide between the Muslim and Christian worlds, shaping perceptions and interactions for centuries. The call for jihad. The fall of Jerusalem galvanized Muslim leaders and thinkers to emphasize the concept of jihad, framing resistance to the Crusaders as a religious duty. This unifying rhetoric was instrumental in the Muslim counteroffensive that culminated in Saladin's reconquest of Jerusalem in 1187. Perceptions of the other. The brutal massacre of Jerusalem's inhabitants hardened attitudes on both sides. Muslim chroniclers portrayed the Crusaders as barbaric invaders, while Christian narratives celebrated the conquest as a divine victory. Chapter 7. The Legacy of 1099 in Crusading Strategy. The success of the First Crusade, culminating in the capture of Jerusalem, influenced the strategies and expectations of later crusades. The importance of unity. The First Crusade succeeded in part due to a rare degree of cooperation among European nobles and military leaders. However, this unity was difficult to replicate in subsequent campaigns. Fragmentation of leadership. Later crusades, such as the Second Crusade, 1147 to 1149, were plagued by rivalries among European rulers. The lack of coordinated leadership often undermined their effectiveness. Military lessons. The siege tactics and logistical strategies employed at Jerusalem informed future campaigns, including the use of siege engines, supply chains, and combined assaults. The role of religious motivation. The conquest of Jerusalem demonstrated the power of religious zeal in rallying support and maintaining morale. Spiritual incentives. The promise of indulgences and eternal salvation continued to be central to crusade recruitment. The memory of Jerusalem's capture served as a rallying cry for subsequent expeditions. The myth of inevitable success. The triumph at Jerusalem fostered an expectation that future crusades would achieve similar results, often leading to disillusionment when later campaigns fell short. Chapter 8. The Fall of Jerusalem in Historical Memory. The events of 1099 have been remembered and reinterpreted in different ways across cultures and centuries, influencing narratives of holy war, identity, and conflict. Christian memory. For medieval Christians, the conquest of Jerusalem was celebrated as a miraculous achievement and a testament to divine favor. Hagiography and chronicles. Saints' lives and crusade chronicles often highlighted the capture of Jerusalem as the pinnacle of Christian devotion and courage. Liturgical commemoration. Churches across Europe held services to celebrate the anniversary of Jerusalem's fall, reinforcing its significance as a moment of divine intervention.